Part 23. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 222. The next meeting was even more interesting, because the voting gap became very narrow, proving that the previous negotiation was very reluctant. Due to the poor performance of the police station and the trial department, the Alchemy Council decided to remove the original police chief and the trial department chief. Claude became the new police chief with a slight advantage in votes. Claude was promoted again, and Rudolph felt that he was the protagonist of the story. The director of the trial department was also replaced. The original director Jem was dismissed and the new director was named Yadin. However, Rudolph could not see any depression on Jem's face. Rudolph guessed that Speaker Quint must have new arrangements for him. After the meeting, a police officer informed Rudolph to go to the vice president's office. The vice president's office is very spacious, with 3 rooms and 3 large windows. There is a sofa in front of the last window. Claude sat there and motioned Rudolph to sit next to him. Opposite Claude and Rudolph, Vice Speaker Abel was thinking on the sofa. At this time, there were only 3 of them in the room. "Nice to meet you, Rudolph." "Hello, Mr. Abel." When he saw Rudolph, Abel felt a little better. "Rudolph, I am so grateful to you. It was you who saved the Dordo district at the risk of your life this morning." Claude's heart suddenly tightened, and he was afraid that Rudolph would say, "So, is there any reward?" According to Claude's understanding of Rudolph, the value of the title of outstanding citizen depends on how much the badge can be sold for. It should be. Everything was taught well by Director Claude before. When we were in Lehmantown, Claude, who was the sheriff at the time, kept telling us that we must keep most people in mind, so that we can be a good patrolman. Claude rarely blushed. Now he was practicing coughing, and the heat on his face made his hair flutter. Damn, he might as well ask the teacher for a reward. Abel knew Claude. Claude might be good at teaching others some skills, but it was hard to imagine that Claude would ask his subordinates to give up their lives for the Dordo district. Unfortunately, Abel was not in the mood. He just smiled. Otherwise, he would have teased Claude. He looked at Rudolph and said, "Rudolph, Claude and I went to Vichy, the county city, this week to ask the Constitutional Army to support Fabreau City. We can't accurately grasp what happened here. Rudolph, do you have any important investigation results?" Rudolph was about to speak, but he heard someone knocking on the door just as he opened his mouth. He saw Ivy coming in with a document for Deputy Speaker Abel to sign. Deputy Speaker Abel noticed that Rudolph stopped talking, frowned slightly and said to Ivy, "Ivy, let's go to the Alchemy Academy now. Don't let the Alchemy Academy cause trouble at this time." Ivy nodded and left the office. "Okay, Rudolph, you can continue." Rudolph asked, "Can you say anything?" Claude took over, "Of course, Rudolph, you can say anything. Now is the time when we need intelligence the most." Rudolph got an encouraging look from Vice Speaker Abel before continuing. "Mr. Vice Speaker, I think there are 2 things that confuse me. These 2 things are not the wolf tide, nor the disaster directed by the Ravno family." Vice Speaker Abel and Claude both became serious. "Is there anything more serious than these 2 things? The first thing is that the tribunal suddenly became incompetent. In my impression, or in previous records, the tribunal has always been the most powerful department under the Alchemy Council. Whether in terms of combat effectiveness or intelligence gathering, it can form a strong deterrent to all heretics in Fabreau City. However, the tribunal has been extremely incompetent in recent times, so incompetent that my vigilance has dropped a lot recently, and I feel that the tribunal can't do anything to me. Of course, I know this is an illusion, and the tribunal is deliberately being so slow. The tribunal has always been the sphere of influence of Speaker Quint, and Vice Speaker Abel does not have much influence on the tribunal. The second thing, I think, may be more critical. As far as I know, Thor Mining Company was extremely busy before the Wolftide. They opened a new Thor trading company. Viscount Savin also opened a new trading company, called Rondo Trading Company. The company's headquarters was renovated from a mansion of Viscount Savin in the Rondo district. It is clear that the great disaster is about to come, and these forces are still setting up trading companies. Who are they trading with? What are they trading for? In the bloody fog in the early morning, even the central area where the parliament is located was attacked by the vampires, but the rich area of Brown district was as if nothing had happened. I don't believe that there is nothing fishy here. This is also the reason why Rudolph wants to avoid Ivy. Ivy is the third daughter of the Thor family. It is impossible for her to ignore the family's affairs. Deputy Speaker Abel covered the lower half of his face with his hands and rubbed his eyelids. Rudolph did not speak, and Claude did not speak either. They kept waiting for Deputy Speaker Abel. Deputy Speaker Abel showed his eyes, with pain and helplessness in his eyes. After a while, Abel said, "Rudolph, the place you are focusing on is indeed the most critical place. My friend in Vichy County told me not to mess around recently to avoid getting into trouble. The city of Fabreau, or the county of Vichy, and even some people at a higher level are pushing for something. They want a port city that can help them obtain resources in the wilderness. The proven minerals and oil fields of various kingdoms and republics all have owners, but the wilderness that occupies 1/3 of the continent is an ownerless resource. The forces in the wilderness are very difficult to deal with. Werewolves are outnumbered. The vampires have numerous castles in the wilderness. If you go deep into the wilderness, you can encounter high-level evil god priests. There are even several evil gods in the depths of the wilderness. If you want to develop the wilderness, you need to station troops and send troops to protect transportation lines. This is too costly and expensive. However, the Mogwen Empire to the north has sent troops into the wilderness and is determined to exploit the resources in the wilderness. This news put a lot of pressure on other kingdoms. The same goes for the Carolingian kingdom. Some people are interested in those resources. It is so difficult to implement it. The vampires and werewolves in the wilderness have no plans to deal with the Alchemy Council. Both sides have blood feuds, so it is not easy to talk together. However, there is a different kind of person in the vampire clan, Rievno, who has been staying in Fabreau City. There is also an alternative among the werewolves, the Red Wolf King Wyston, who has always wanted to build a werewolf city. I suspect that these two people contacted Quint somehow. Quint is worried about the delisting plan of Fabreau City. If Fabreau City can be turned into a port city, if Fabreau City can be made a starting point for developing wilderness, then Quint's importance will be great. Increase. In fact, this is also true. This time I went to Vichy and found that many people were supporting Quint. Presumably, the shares of Thor Trading Company must be very complicated, so complicated that many people in the county, city, and even the province have shares in it. Deputy Speaker Abel stared at the coffee in front of him. The coffee had completely cooled down and had no heat at all. Quint is unwilling to be a smuggler, although what he does is smuggling things from the wilderness to other cities in the kingdom, and smuggling things from the kingdom into the wilderness. The Redemption Act of Fabreau City. The Redemption Bill is nothing more than an excuse and a cover-up for the smuggling trade. If Fabreau City is full of blood servants, werewolves, and evil priests, then it makes sense that we have to deal with these people. I think that the 18,000 blood servants in Fabreau City will be of great use, but I don't know what Quint's specific plan is. Rudolph, you reminded me that I will focus on 2 trading companies to see what they are going to do. After a period of silence, Deputy Speaker Abel sat up straight and asked Rudolph. Rudolph, maybe you don't know alchemists very well. Can you imagine? For profit, alchemists can do anything. Wolftide and Blood Mist Night are just some necessary means to obtain profits. Maybe in a few days, 18,000 blood servants will be recruited by them to develop the wilderness. Is this Fabro City's version of changing rice into mulberry? In order to increase fiscal revenue, the embankments were broken and the fields were flooded, forcing people to plant mulberry trees instead. As for some people who may starve to death because of this, that is not very important. For the sake of your own money, you can only suffer the common people. Rudolph nodded. I believe it, very much. I heard a bard say. With 50% profit, the alchemist will take desperate risks. With 100% profit, the alchemist dares to trample all human laws. With 300% profit, the alchemist dares to commit any crime, even risking hanging. With a 500% profit, the alchemist is even willing to sell the rope that hangs him. For the alchemist's golden shield, ordinary people can only suffer a little longer. Deputy Speaker Abel smiled bitterly. I can only endure the hardships of ordinary people. This sentence is so accurate. This is not a bard, this is clearly a bard's philosopher. Claude was not good at philosophy, so he couldn't get a word in. After a while, he said, Teacher, the time is up. I have to lead Colonel Guyton. Let Rudolph go with him. Abel nodded and motioned for the two of them to leave first. He was meditating alone, wondering if he could come up with any good ideas or do anything. Claude explained on the way, the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army, which came from afar, needs to rest all morning. It's noon now, and they need to quickly launch a retaliatory attack on the werewolves and vampires. Let's go show them the way and help them read the map. Avoid maps that are too old and inconsistent with the current terrain. There is also a small airship parked in the square in front of the Parliament. Standing in front of the airship was Colonel Guyton. He was nearly 2 meters tall and his waist was straight. At first glance, he looked like a professional soldier. Colonel Guyton, I've kept you waiting for a long time. Let's set off now. It's okay. My soldiers also need to rest. They had enough rest this morning before they could go to battle. Several people got on the small airship and flew into the sky. After leaving Fabro City, 25 airships from the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army were already waiting in the air. The small airship flew to the main ship Silver Flame. The small airship hung on the side of the main ship, and everyone also boarded the main ship. Claude and Rudolph were just here as guides, and the 56th Regiment was responsible for the specific battles. The fleet's first target is Lehman Town, south of Fabro City. Lehman Town was the werewolves' base camp a few days ago. One morning was enough for the werewolves to escape. At this time, Lehman Town was in a mess, and the most common items on the streets were all kinds of clothes. It must be that the werewolves first entered the town and learned how to dress and wear hats as ordinary people. The traces of large numbers of werewolves were easy to identify, and the airship followed the traces of werewolves outside the town. Werewolves need rest, machines don't. After chasing for 3 hours, the fleet finally saw a large group of werewolves. The werewolves were fleeing on the hillside. Facing a large number of airships, the low-level werewolves had no room to resist. White phosphorus bombs. Get ready. For a time, hundreds of white phosphorus bombs covered the entire hillside. White phosphorus bombs exploded over the hillside in silvery fireworks. White phosphorus is burning on the hillside, and even the grass, trees, and soil are emitting white smoke. The white smoke is highly toxic phosphide. In conjunction with the white phosphorus bombs, the airship's broadside guns pointed downwards, bombarding the hillside. 3 rounds of white phosphorus bombs and grenades washed the ground, melting the hillside directly, and groups of werewolves were wiped out instantly. Those werewolves who escaped could not escape far and were shot to death by artillery or machine guns on the airship. At this time, in the horse farm on the southern outskirts of Fabro City, Red Wolf King West was tasting steak. A level 4 werewolf was reporting something to him. In other words, the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army attacked us first? Didn't you go to Riovno first, The Red Wolf King was a little surprised. Quint didn't inform us in advance. No, majestic Wolf King, doesn't Quint have the ability to completely control the parliament? The Red Wolf King continued to take a bite of steak and shook his head. Let's not think too simply about Quint. Maybe this is also one of his plans. I have to say that this speaker is much better than us in conspiracy. This is what we have to learn from. A man suddenly appeared outside the racecourse. He went straight into the racecourse owner's restaurant, where he saw the Red Wolf King in human form. The person who came turned out to be Jim, the former director of the judiciary who had just been dismissed. He said, "Dear Red Wolf King, the speaker asked me to tell you that Colonel Guyton continued to complete his mission and solve the wolf tide, regardless of the speaker's obstruction." The Red Wolf King knew that the fleeing wolves had suffered heavy losses, but he didn't say anything more. He just smiled and said, "There's nothing we can do about it. I can't stop that blazing Guyton, so let him go. Has Mr. Speaker decided when to meet?" Seeing Jem shaking his head, the Red Wolf King said, "Oh, of course, Guyton is not in Fabro City. I don't think the speaker will come out at this time. It is very dangerous for him to see us at this time, although we will definitely not do anything to Speaker Quint. If you have any bad intentions, let's wait until Guyton comes back and find a chance to talk about it." Watching Quint's people go away, the Red Wolf King said one last thing. "Reefner is unlucky. Werewolves can still run during the day, but vampires can't run during the day. Wait until his castle is bulldozed. I think Quint will also apologize to him. A light apology will be given to Ravner in a timely manner. For Quint, a weak partner is a good partner. When the time comes, he will have absolute initiative at the negotiating table." The level 4 werewolf couldn't help but lower his head and asked, "Then do we still want to cooperate with Quint?" "Of course we have to cooperate. We have paid so much. Don't we just want to get more resources? More meat, more people, more weapons. If we don't trade and expect the werewolves to come by themselves, the speed is too slow. As for Quint, there is nothing he can do. The alchemist is the most greedy apostle, so he must endure it for a while and establish a trade route. Our primary goal is to control other werewolf tribes through trade. When we are strong enough, we will finally settle the score with Quint." After killing a large number of werewolves in a short period of time, they continued to fly into the distance. The next target of the fleet is the castle of the Rievno family. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 223. The old castle of the Rievno family, which is said to have taken 300 years to build, appears at the end of the field of view. More than a dozen towering towers and 8 palace-like 4 to 5-story main buildings, each at least 50 meters long, are scattered on the steep hillside. The black stone looks extremely dull in the sun. This ancient castle is located in an inaccessible wilderness, with no roads, no entrances, only high walls. The vampires fly, so they don't need doors. As for the low-level vampires who cannot fly, they are lifelong slaves in the castle and do not need to go out. The entire castle was silent, and the vampires could not see the sun during the day, so the constitutional army deployed firepower in an orderly manner. Half an hour later, a roar sounded above the castle. In the mountain behind the castle, all the vampires have hidden themselves in caves. The cave is 30 meters high, and the interior is covered with stone slabs like a palace. There are dense castle bats hanging upside down from the top of the cave. Beside the ancient golden coffin, Hera asked the same question as the Red Wolf King, "Didn't Quint give us any warning in advance?" The answer is still the same, no. It's okay. If we can build one castle, we can build a second and third castle. Now I have more blood servants and more wealth. The wealth of the Ravno family in Fabro City was destroyed overnight, and the castle seemed unsustainable. However, the bright prospects did not show any signs of discouragement on their faces. As long as they firmly controlled the wilderness trade, sold things in the wilderness to the kingdom of God's chosen, and sold the products of the kingdom of God's chosen to the wilderness, they were not afraid of this little loss. As the roar became more and more violent, and as the vibration got closer and closer, the faces of many vampires became more and more uneasy. On the ground, sections of city walls were blown down, towers were blown down, and palaces were blown to pieces. Stones mixed with broken glass were splashing everywhere, and the Constitutional Army was looking for the vampires' cave during the bombing. It's no secret that the vampire castles have caves or underground caves. Most of the castles are built on mountains, so as to provide them with an escape route and avoid being found during the day. The Blood Clan mainly relies on crazy revenge afterwards to ensure that no one dares to trouble the castle during the day. Unfortunately, the Constitutional Army is not afraid of the vampire clan's revenge. The entrance to the cave will be built very solidly and can withstand most attacks. Colonel. We found several suspected cave entrances. Among the ruins of several palaces, the soldiers discovered what appeared to be entrances to caves. Only one of these entrances is real, the others may be disguises. Vampires who are as timid as mice can always build huge fortifications in hundreds of years, so huge that it gives people a headache. Claude asked doubtfully, "Do I need to blow them up one by one?" "That's all it can be. There are 6 entrances in total. I don't know which one is real, or they may all be fake." Just when Colonel Guyton was about to give the order, Rudolph suddenly said, "I have a simple method, how about you let me try it while you're bombing it?" Claude was surprised at first, and then helped, "Let Rudolph try it? My special assistant is still very smart." Colonel Guyton nodded, "Then you give it a try, it might save time, but can you tell me what you plan to do?" Rudolph said. "The vampires hollowed out part of the mountain, which will cause a cavity to appear inside the mountain. The overall density will suddenly decrease somewhere. The larger the cavity, the lower the density. Where the density is low, the gravity will become smaller. If we can make the sensitive spring can detect the cavity in the mountain through gravity. This kind of exploration is called the gravity exploration method. Let Director Claude help me make a spring. He is an alchemist and should be able to make it soon." Guyton nodded, "There are many ways for wizards, so let's try it." Rudolph's scalp went numb, and the surrounding wind became much colder in an instant, and he almost fell over the railing of the airship. Claude smiled and patted Rudolph on the shoulder. "Colonel, let's try it now. I believe my assistant will get results soon." Claude pulled Rudolph away and left. In a place with few people, Claude whispered, "Don't scare yourself. The Constitutional Army also has obedient wizards. Who doesn't need wizard weapons? Maybe Colonel Guyton himself has wizards who are often cooperative." Rudolph swallowed. "I thought I was going to die just now, but my identity was exposed when a level 5 alchemist glanced at me. I want to know how he found out. When you rescued the Dordo district, we were all watching from the airship. He could tell at a glance that it was the Scorpio wizard's method. There is nothing surprising. Claude is a level 3 alchemist. He found some springs in the airship's accessories library, and then, according to Rudolph, made these springs very sensitive. Soon, a simple metal spring gravimeter was ready. An officer took them into the boat and flew over the mountain. No changes were found above the entire castle, but when they tried to go around to the back of the mountain, they found that the spring gravity meter had changed significantly. The officers on the small boat fired a signal flare. 2 of the Constitutional Army's airships were left to continue bombing from the front, and the rest flew to the location of the small boat. Rudolph and the others came to the main ship Silver Flame again. "Are you sure you're here?" Facing Colonel Guyton's question, Rudolph explained the principle again, and then said, "Alchemists believe in the truth, and there is accurate logic between cause and effect. I am sure that this is the location of the vampire cave." Colonel Gayton thought for a moment and said, "It seems that the vampires have penetrated the mountain, passed through a long passage, and built a cave on the back of the mountain. Then concentrate the gunpowder and blow up their cave here." The soldiers were busy again. Rudolph was very confident that this was definitely the real nest of the vampires. Claude said on the side, "Rudolph, I taught you this method, right? You have a good memory." "I have forgotten it, but you still remember it." Rudolph turned his head in confusion. Did you teach it? Why is your memory so bad?" Rudolph was a little confused. He didn't know why Claude said that he taught it. Claude was not the kind of person who took credit for others. He nodded and agreed, "I am sure you taught it, Director Claude. I can find evidence, and I took notes at the time." Colonel Gayton smiled and shook his head. "Rudolph, the alchemist needs to use the advanced laboratory to be promoted. The qualification to use the laboratory mainly depends on the quality of the published papers. This spring gravimeter is enough for Claude to publish a good paper, so he asked. This paper may not be important to you, but it is very important to Claude. Alchemists are getting stronger and stronger in this research." Rudolph finally understood the reason. "Director Claude, next time you can just say it directly, no need to beat around the bush. Next time you have something good, can you give it to me directly, don't beat around the bush." "Got it, no problem. My main job is architectural design, and I am very interested in Feng Shui. I have read some books on gold division and tomb determination. Once I met a geological prospector, who said he had helped others find ancestral graves. I thought he was also interested in Feng Shui, but he said he didn't understand Feng Shui, and used geophysical exploration technology to measure the GOF, similar to gravity exploration, electrical exploration, etc. After he explained the principle, I stopped reading the burial sutras and the 10 books on Yangzai. It was useless. It's not your peers who defeat you, but cross-border. When the high-tech school comes out, all experience and inference will be crushed. You are still guessing, using the Zilong Anshan, the 9 palaces, 8 trigrams, and 7 stars. Once their instruments are used, the error does not exceed 2 centimeters. Who can compare with this? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 224. In the cave of the castle, stones and dust began to fall. For some reason, the Constitutional Army found the location of the cave accurately and started to blast the mountain from the top of the cave. Even in the depths of the cave, the sound of drilling and dynamite could be heard. The castle bats hanging upside down on the top of the cave woke up one after another and ran around in the cave. For a time, all the vampires in the cave were in a panic. Hera commanded some vampires to fly up to prevent the stones on the top of the cave from falling on the golden coffin. She looked at the silent golden coffin and became more and more uneasy. I don't know if the Revno family can survive this crisis. It is obviously expanding with great momentum, but now it is blocked in the cave, which is extremely aggrieved. Fortunately for Hera, the family had already arranged backup forces in the Ruhr mine cave. The Ruhr mining area is a newly discovered mining area in the wilderness. The mineral resources are so rich that only a number can make old foxes like Quint tremble. Above the castle mountain, Rudolph felt that the progress was slow. How long will it take to blow it up? It was already evening when they arrived, and they definitely couldn't blow it through today. Although the alchemist's gunpowder was powerful, it was still a little bit short of changing the topography of a mountain in such a short time. Colonel Gayton looked at the setting sun and realized that he couldn't finish the work today. He turned around and said to the messenger beside him, "The 6 entrances and exits on the front, whether they are real or not, are all sealed. Find a way to pile up stones and building ruins to ensure that the vampires inside can't escape." If you can't finish the bombing today, you can bomb it tomorrow. The soldiers of the Constitutional Army obeyed the colonel's order. The soldiers were busy for a while, and they actually used the airship as a crane, hanging steel cables under the airship, transporting huge rocks over, and pressing them on the entrances one by one. Colonel Gayton issued a new order, no longer blowing up the mountain at night, but taking turns to monitor the entire castle mountain to prevent the vampires from escaping from other exits. As long as we wait until tomorrow morning and bomb all day, we can wipe out the vampires in one fell swoop. When the sun shines into the cave, the vampires will be sunburned to death without the Constitutional Army taking action. Immortality comes at a price, and the immortality of the vampires, to be honest, is not very attractive. In the words of Colonel Gayton, the vampires are afraid of light, and they should be the easiest apostles to deal with. You should not be afraid of anyone but the vampires. The silver flame hovered on the top of the mountain, and other airships took turns to patrol the surroundings of the castle mountain. In the middle of the night, Rudolph did not sleep and stood by the railing of the airship. The moonlight at night illuminated the ruins all over the mountains. The once glorious castles are now only low ruins, piles upon piles. The destructive power of the alchemist is so strong that it can destroy the wealth of the Ravno family for thousands of years in one day. No matter how ancient the sculptures are, no matter how exquisite the castles are, they are as fragile as dead wood in front of artillery. At this time, the castle mountain was quiet, with only the sound of propellers from the patrolling airships. A footstep sounded. Rudolph turned around and saw that it was Colonel Gayton, who had rested well. He was full of energy again. "You haven't slept either, Sheriff Rudolph." Colonel Gayton still called Rudolph according to the police badge, calling Rudolph Sheriff. "No sleep," Rudolph said. "If I were Ravno, I would break out tonight, not wait until tomorrow. When the sun comes out, the cave will be breached, and he will have no power to fight back." Colonel Gayton smiled. "You are right, I think so too." At this time, another airship approached. An officer on the airship shouted, "Colonel, 10 werewolves have been captured. Werewolves have been used to strengthen our monitoring of the Blood Clan. The werewolves were taken by the boat to a place not far away. The werewolves are very sensitive to the smell of the Blood Clan. If the Blood Clan has other cave exits, as long as they show their heads, they will be discovered by the werewolves soon." An hour later, Rudolph suddenly heard the wolf howl. For a moment, various command lights on the silver flame lit up, and the alarm sounded shrilly. According to the werewolf's reminder, several vampires were found under an inconspicuous root at the foot of the castle mountain. It is difficult to dig holes in the mountain, and each hole is not very wide. These spare caves with a low probability of use can only allow 2 people to sit side by side. The number of vampires who can come out at one time is limited. The firepower of the 2 airships is enough to cover that exit. The silver flame did not move, still hovering on the top of the mountain. The small commotion did not make the main ship act rashly. "I heard that cunning rabbits will leave several exits in the rabbit hole. As a hunter, you must be patient." Sure enough, after the vampires tried twice in a row, an explosion suddenly came from a certain direction. It was not the artillery of the airship, but a large dose of explosives. Colonel Gayton did not order the use of explosives tonight, so the explosives were placed by the vampires themselves, trying to blow a spacious escape hole from a certain exit. The propeller roared, and the silver flame dived like a hawk, rushing towards the gap. In a moment, dozens of vampires flew out of the gap. White phosphorus bomb. Fire. The combat effectiveness of the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army is based on the white phosphorus bomb, a level 5 alchemical weapon of Colonel Gayton. The multiple rocket launchers kept shooting out thick smoke, and several white phosphorus bombs hit the target and exploded above the target. Silver fireworks bloomed at night, and those vampires were melted instantly. Rudolph felt a little painful, because they were all level 2 vampires, all bat wings. Just in the gap between the white phosphorus bombs, dozens of vampires rushed out from the mountain again. Rudolph saw a little golden light in the night. It was the golden coffin of Ravno. Dozens of vampires were on top, the golden coffin was in the middle, and there were high-level vampires below. These people were desperately trying to escape with the only chance of survival. Several more white phosphorus bombs fell, and those vampires flying above were burned through wherever the silver flames touched them, including their bat wings and bodies. At this moment, Rudolph saw the golden coffin open again. There was so little blood in the golden coffin that even Ravno could not cover it completely. Ravno, whose sleep was interrupted again, spread his 4 bat wings and fled into the darkness with the golden coffin and the level 3 vampires below. The speed of the 4-winged Ravno was very fast, and he almost instantly left the coverage of the white phosphorus bomb. At this moment, an alchemical rocket launcher appeared on Colonel Gayton's shoulder. His movements were so fast that Rudolph had no reaction. Ravno suddenly felt the danger. He turned his head to look at the silver flame and found the special rocket whistling in horror. This rocket has a built-in tracking function, closely following Ravno, faster than Ravno, and dragging a long tail flame to hit Ravno. Ravno's 4 bat wings instantly stretched to their maximum, and blood sprayed from the bat wings to form a blood barrier. The silver fireworks and the red blood barrier collided with each other. Facing the attack of the level 5 alchemist, these blood barriers only resisted for a moment before being melted by the high temperature of thousands of degrees. After everything there was over, Rudolph saw Ravno with 3 bat wings burned. There were only 2 level 3 blood descendants of Ravno, one was Hera, and the other Rudolph had seen a photo of was Huntington, the eldest son of Ravno. The remaining blood clans were all burned through by this white phosphorus bomb. Taking advantage of the air wave of the explosion, the 3 blood clans fled to a farther place. Colonel Gayton sighed and put down the alchemical rocket launcher. Rudolph said in his heart, "The performance is over, and the dignity of the Alchemy Council has returned." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 225. After the battle, 3 vampires from the Ravno family escaped, and the rest were wiped out by the 56th Regiment. The vampires in the cave were not spared either. The incendiary bombs burned out all the oxygen inside, and the poison gas bombs filled the entire cave. After that, the battlefield was cleaned up. The soldiers all had obsessive-compulsive disorder. There were 10 corpses in each row and 10 rows in a square. In front of the vampire corpses, more than 200 vampire corpses were neatly arranged, a total of 2.5 squares. Among them, the most eye-catching were the corpses of 3 level 3 vampires, one of which was severely damaged and burned beyond recognition by white phosphorus bombs. I don't know if it still has any value. In front of the vampire corpses, there are 5 ancient bronze coffins, 21 ancient stone coffins, and nearly 50 wooden coffins. The wooden coffins are a bit tattered, but the stone and bronze coffins are well preserved. The Ravno family controls all vampires through these ancient coffins. The right to use the coffin is a rigid demand for all vampires. In addition to these, there are countless wealth accumulated by the Ravno family, pure gold tableware, boxes of gold shields. Walking among the seized supplies, Claude asked, "Rudolph, what do you want? Will you give me what I want? How do you know if Colonel Gayton will give it if you don't try? Be bold and make a request. What if he agrees?" Rudolph said, "I don't want much, all the relics of the level 3 vampires. The copper coffin looks valuable, give me a few. As for those gold shields, half of them. I asked you to make a request, not to make a wish. Then I want a relic of the level 3 vampire, and I think we can prepare an ancient copper coffin for Sam." Hearing Rudolph's words, Claude remembered the one who was still in the police station. "Sam in the basement, you are right, we should prepare a copper coffin for Sam." The two of them walked towards Colonel Gayton, and Claude said, "Colonel, Vice Speaker Abel wants an ancient copper coffin and a relic of a level 3 vampire. When Rudolph thought that Colonel Gayton would not agree so easily, he heard Gayton say, "Okay, but I also have a condition. Let your assistant make 80 pairs of level 2 bat wings for me. The officers on the airship need to have the ability to fly." Claude was puzzled, "But you don't have 80 alchemist officers. There will be some in the future. Why did you divide Rudolph into laborers when you could divide the spoils properly? 80 witchcraft weapons, isn't this bullying an honest man? Alchemists have assembly lines to make weapons, but Rudolph is pure handwork." Seeing that Colonel Gayton and Claude were looking at him, Rudolph had to say, "Okay, but it will take some time. Don't worry, I will stay in Fabreau City for a while to stabilize the situation in Fabreau City. Rudolph will not make witchcraft here, it is not too late to do it when he returns to Fabreau City. 80 pieces of level 2 bat wings, which is equivalent to 40,000 gold shields. This is only part of the seizure of the Constitutional Army. A rough estimate shows that the seizure of the Constitutional Army this time exceeds 2 million gold shields. Just those ancient bronze coffins can be sold at an exaggerated price in the Black Gold Institute. The airship fleet returned to Fabreau City and landed on the outskirts of Fabreau City. Claude and Rudolph went home. 5 carriages of the Constitutional Army followed Rudolph. Rudolph asked them to unload the bodies of the level 3 vampires, 80 pairs of bat wings, and an ancient bronze coffin in the cemetery of the Dordo district. Cooper was extremely surprised when he saw the pile of bat wings. "Rudolph, is Ravno dead?" "Not completely dead, half dead. But the Ravno castle has become the ruins of Ravno." Cooper saw a level 3 vampire corpse behind Rudolph, but he knew that this was Rudolph's thing and would not be given to him. "Cooper, I'll borrow your territory for a while. This bronze coffin will be buried here. I will send someone over tomorrow and let him sleep in the bronze coffin." Cooper nodded, and he went to direct the corpse to dig a grave. When everyone left, Rudolph received all the bat wings in the star map. The bat wings like a hill disappeared, and the relics of the level 3 vampires also disappeared. The level 3 vampire left behind 3 relics, level 3 iron bat wings, level 3 blood-sucking fangs, and level 3 blood tangents. This vampire was a direct descendant of Ravno and a vampire who slept in a bronze coffin. Rudolph had seized the level 3 iron batwing and level 3 vampire fang once before. Among the relics of this vampire, only the level 3 blood tangent can light up new stars. The level 3 blood tangent disappeared in Rudolph's hands. In Rudolph's star map, a meteor flew to the star field of Pisces. The Pisces new star was lit up, and the progress of Pisces reached 8/15. Vanya appeared beside Rudolph, and he drew the star map for Rudolph. "This is a weapon made for Vanya, so let Vanya do more." After drawing the star map, 2 bloodlines drilled out of Vanya's wrist, and these 2 bloodlines were coiled in the right circle of the star triangle. Rudolph put the level 3 blood tangent in another circle and began to make blood tangents. As the level of the magic weapon increases, more and more witch words are used. As the main attack method of the level 3 vampires, this magic weapon is a bit complicated. The first witchcraft used for level 3 blood tangent is Pisces witchcraft, alien. This witchcraft can ensure that the blood tangent can be deformed and extended at will. Pisces star power fell and entered Rudolph's body. The flesh on Rudolph's cheeks bulged and sunken because of Pisces witchcraft, and kept deforming. Soon, the second witchcraft began to work, Sagittarius witchcraft stab. The level 3 blood tangent still has a sharp tip and can pierce most defenses. Sagittarius star power is the most uncomfortable star power for Rudolph. Once it enters the body, it will run around and stab, causing Rudolph to feel a strong tingling sensation. I really don't know how the Sagittarius wizard endures this feeling. The third witchcraft, Gemini witchcraft split. Rudolph felt that his head was about to split in half, from the philtrum to the nose and then to the midline of the scalp, as if he had been chopped by someone. The blood tangent is stronger than the level 2 bloodline in that any part of it can cut the target, which is very flexible. The 3 star powers stirred in Rudolph's body, and Rudolph only hoped to finish this magic weapon as soon as possible. The star power entered the astrological triangle, and under the drive of Sagittarius star power, the magic weapon was quickly completed. Vanya came over and stretched out her hand, and the blood tangent stood up like a snake and drilled into Vanya's body. On his skin and in his flesh, there seemed to be thin snakes wriggling, as he was generating a new blood system. Rudolph was glad that he had Vanya, otherwise he would have found it difficult to accept such a magical weapon in his body, both mentally and physically. The attack range of the blood tangent reached 15 meters, which was a good medium-range attack weapon, and also made Vanya a leader among the level 3 apostles. This was the power of a magical weapon. As long as a suitable magical weapon was used, one's strength could increase rapidly. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 226. In the underground prison of the city police station, in a very clean cell, Sam sat by the wall, with his head against his knees, and kept this posture for 2 consecutive days without any other movements. On the 3rd night of the bloody night, Kelida came to the prison again to deliver food, a cup of blood. "Sam, are you very hungry? Come on." Sam still did not respond and did not move. At this time, he heard the door of the prison open and another footstep came in. Sam heard the voice of Captain Rudolph. "Sam, you come with me, you can't stay here. If you stay a few more days, Kelida will be anemic." Sam suddenly looked up and saw Kelida's arm moved behind her. "Is this blood Kelida's own? Why don't you try it? Kelida is not easy either. I heard that such a cup of blood is sold for 3 silver shields on the black market. Besides, if you don't eat something, it's hard to walk." Kelida saw Sam's sunken cheeks. In just 3 days, Sam was tortured into such a state. Sam saw the tears on Kelida's face and her pale complexion. "Sam, it's not your fault." Kelida squatted beside Sam. "This is not a disaster you can resist." Who knew that blood donation would also be collected by the Ravno family? "I'm sorry, Kelida." "It's not your fault, Sam, cheer up and go with Captain Rudolph." Kelida wanted to tell a joke to make Sam feel better. "Look, Captain Rudolph is a wizard, and Ivan is a werewolf. Aren't they all fine? You have to be fine too." Rudolph always felt like he had become a negative example, but he couldn't find a logical loophole for a while. Everyone was promoting that heretics were man-eating demons. This concept has been deeply rooted in people's minds, especially for police officers like Sam. When he became a heretic, it was even more difficult for him to accept his identity. Rudolph said, "Sam, drink some blood, and come with me when you have some strength. You can't stay in jail forever." Sam knew that Rudolph was right and he should have left long ago. He cherished every minute of the present so much. He could still look at Kelida's face at such a close distance. There would be few such opportunities in the future. He took the cup and drank the blood in it. The satisfaction of being well fed and the fragrance of blood made Sam feel ashamed. He was now really a vampire, a monster that drank human blood. After standing up shakily, Sam walked towards Rudolph. "Captain, let's go." Watching the 2 people leave, Kelida also wiped the tears from her face and followed them. At the door of the city police station, the 3 separated. "Goodbye, Kelida." "Goodbye, Sam." The 2 said goodbye in the simplest words. Goodbye is the best wish, and often the most difficult wish to achieve. After leaving the police station, Sam couldn't help but ask, "Captain, can I still be with Kelida?" "You have to be mentally prepared. You are now a blood servant with a lifespan of 150 years. When you become a level 1 vampire, you will have a lifespan of 250 years, and when you become a level 2 vampire, you will have a lifespan of 500 years. The age gap between you will become larger and larger. When Kelida is 80 years old and can't walk, you will still look like you are 20 years old. You can never see Kelida during the day, you can only go to her at night. During this period, if you want to be promoted, you need to sleep constantly. Maybe in the last few decades, you have been sleeping half of the time. It depends on your talent. If you have a good talent, it may be shorter. The vampires are a special kind of apostles. They have a long lifespan and a poor quality of life. They are constantly sleeping, isolating themselves from the world, and gradually forget the feelings of ordinary people. If you still want to be with Kelida, you will suffer a lot, and Kelida will suffer even more. Sam's eyes were gloomy and he stopped talking. He followed Rudolph and walked towards the South City Cemetery. After entering the cemetery, Sam saw his acquaintance Cooper. Several people came to a dug tomb, where a copper coffin was placed. The dark red copper color and mottled verdigris on it proved that the copper coffin was very old. There was a lot of blood in it, which was stored by the Rabno family before, enough to drown Sam. Wooden coffin, stone coffin, copper coffin. Sam, you have been sleeping in a copper coffin since the beginning. This treatment is also very high among the vampires. I heard that the price of sleeping in a copper coffin is 150 gold shields a year. Sam, enjoy this luxurious big bed. Go in, Sam. I don't know when you can wake up. I hope that when you wake up, you can successfully become a level 1 vampire. Sam thought he would hate this half pool of blood, but he didn't. He took off his shoes and socks and stepped into the blood. The blood wrapped Sam's body felt comfortable. He slowly flowed down in the blood pool until he was completely submerged in the blood. He didn't close his eyes, and his vision was blood red. This copper coffin has special energy, which keeps the blood warm all the time. Lying in the blood, the whole body is warm. Sam fell into a deep sleep in the long-lost comfort. The coffin lid was closed, and several corpses buried the copper coffin. Sam's problem was temporarily solved. Rudolph still had 80 pairs of bat wings to make. He was about to go to work overtime, but was stopped by Cooper. Cooper said, "Rudolph, there are too many deaths in the Bayer district these 2 days. Not only did more than 1,000 people die in the blood fog night, but last night and tonight, 100 corpses were sent to the Bayer district every day, all of whom were sucked to death by crazy blood servants. Don't you police station care about it? Not all blood servants are willing to starve like Sam. After the blood servants have tasted the taste of blood, they can no longer resist this temptation." "What?" Rudolph sneered. "Isn't there the Fabreau City Atonement Act? This is a matter for the Alchemy Council. What should we worry about?" "You don't have to worry, someone will organize these blood servants soon. They are precious resources, and there will be new arrangements soon." Butcher was right, the city center of Fabreau was dirtier than the dirtiest sewer. Rudolph stayed up late every day, and it took him a week to complete 80 pairs of bat wings. As the toughest person in Fabreau City, Colonel Guyton's request was worthy of Rudolph's overtime work. When he came to the headquarters of the Constitutional Army with a leather belt full of boxes, he saw the Constitutional Army carrying ammunition to the airship. Colonel Guyton came to greet Rudolph in person. "Thank you for your hard work. I was planning to ask you about the progress of the Batwings after this operation. I didn't expect that you completed the production before the operation started." The adjutant opened the box and inspected the Batwings one by one. Rudolph asked, "Is there any action again? Have you found Revno?" Colonel Guyton shook his head. "It's not Revno, but several large mines were discovered in the wilderness 100 kilometers away from Fabreau City. The council named it the Ruhr mining area, and I was ordered to clean up the werewolves and vampires around there." Rudolph sighed in his heart and even got up his name early. "The Ruhr mining area is a great place, where wealth will begin." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 227. Colonel Guyton's staff officer brought a list, and according to the list, officers came forward one by one to receive the witchcraft. These officers are all alchemists. As long as they have level 2 bat wings, they will become more flexible on the airship. Even if the airship crashes, these officers will not have a problem. Several officers looked at Rudolph very unkindly, which made Rudolph a little uncomfortable. Rudolph didn't know if these officers heard something. Maybe they knew Rudolph's identity as a wizard. Under the pervasive propaganda and education of God's chosen apostles, wizards are obviously the most hateful people. He shook his head and said to Colonel Guyton, "Colonel, if there is no problem, I will leave first." Colonel Guyton stopped Rudolph. He first said to the staff officer beside him, "Go get the funds." Funding? Rudolph was a little confused. Yes, for funding. If you hire someone to make magic weapons for combat, of course you need to pay for the production. Not long after, the staff officer brought an envelope. Rudolph saw that the thickness was not bad. The staff officer said, "A level 2 witchcraft costs 30 gold shields to make. There are 80 witchcrafts in total. I will give you 2,400 gold shields. Please check. The overtime work these days has paid off. Not only did I get a favor, but I also received a gold shield." Military supplies always bring huge profits. Rudolph worked overtime for 5 days and actually earned 2,400 gold shields. He was very satisfied. If he were in other places, Rudolph would definitely check the number carefully, but in front of the Constitutional Army, Rudolph took it and put it in his pocket. No need to check, I trust the character of the soldiers. The Constitutional Army was in a hurry to go to the Ruhr mining area, and Rudolph also quickly left the Constitutional Army's station. He was still a little confused. There were many projects under construction in this temporary camp. It didn't look like a temporary building, but rather like a good-sized barracks. If you have the chance, ask Claude if the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army will be permanently stationed in Fabreau City. When returning from the Constitutional Army station, Rudolph deliberately passed through the Bayer district. Bayer district, one of the 3 districts engulfed by the blood mist, was as quiet as a dead land during the day. All the windows were sealed tightly, without any gaps. The houses here don't need light during the day, and they don't need light at night. Those blood servants hide deep in the house, in closets, in basements, in windowless bathrooms. It was clearly daytime, but the only sound of Rudolph's footsteps could be heard on the street. The wind blew through the street, blowing up a lot of garbage. Broken newspapers and clothes fell on the wall. There are bullet holes in the walls, a testament to the chaos here at night. Rudolph, a wizard, could walk in the sun, but these people who were made into blood servants by Ravno could only hide. Even looking outside through the crack in the door became a luxury. On the dividing street between Bayer and Dordo districts, Rudolph saw sandbags, barbs and other fortifications. More than a dozen guns were aimed at Rudolph, causing Rudolph's eyebrows to ache slightly. Behind the fortifications, a patrolman hurriedly shouted to others, "Put down the gun. It's daytime, and the person coming is not a blood servant." Rudolph walked closer, and the patrolman was still apologizing to Rudolph. "I didn't target you intentionally, and don't take it to heart." They were all frightened by the blood servants. Every night, there are groups of blood servants rushing towards the Dordo district, trying to drink people in the Dordo district. Blood. During the day, some people also took risks and wanted to steal in Bayer area, so we had to arrange defense during the day. At this time, the militiaman on the side said, "Mr. Patrolman." He came from Bayer district. Even if he is not a blood servant, There must be something wrong. Rudolph silently took out his police badge and wore it on his chest. The patrolman took a look. Senior Sergeant. He quickly moved the roadblock with his own hands. Chief. I'm just a patrol officer, I didn't know it was you. The patrolman thought about it carefully and realized that he had indeed never seen the police chief in front of him, and he had not been seen during the meeting, but the police badge could not be faked. It was indeed the badge of the senior police chief. Rudolph said, "You did a good job. I went to the Bayer area for some business. You can continue to defend." The patrolman looked at Rudolph's back and thought that the senior police chief was so powerful that he dared to enter the Bayer area alone. "I went home and took a look and found that everything was normal in the workhouse." Rudolph got Ivan a new belt, which was the level 3 iron batwing he just got, just for Ivan to use. Seeing Ivan's happy look, Rudolph suddenly felt that he was a little biased. Compared with Ivan, Jennifer has many fewer witchcraft weapons. The only witchcraft weapon given to Jennifer is the level 3 wolf blade dagger she made last time. After thinking about it, Rudolph decided to have lunch at Jennifer's barren mansion and make amends to Jennifer after the meal. If the magic weapon is not enough, the body will make up for it. In the evening, Rudolph left the baron's mansion. The compensation was a bit harsh, and he even slept for 2 hours before waking up after the compensation. He suddenly thought in despair that after returning to the almshouse tonight, Ivan would definitely reward him for receiving the new level 3 witchcraft. Really, just 2 women made Rudolph feel exhausted. He didn't know how Claude managed to deal with so many women. Rudolph once again came to the street adjacent to the Bayer district and the Dordo district. I found a rooftop and found that the rooftop had also been set up as a firepower point by the patrol, and 5 militiamen were on guard with guns. These militiamen are ordinary residents of Dordo district and have their own occupations, but when necessary, they will be organized to defend their homes. Several militiamen did not notice Rudolph behind them, they were talking to themselves. When do you think this will end? We have to come to resist the blood servants every night. The parliament is too inefficient. The Redemption Act has been out for so long, but there is no specific solution. Isn't it normal for the parliament to be inefficient? Every time they make a decision, they argue and argue again, and they can't reach a conclusion in a few months. Those blood servants are like crazy. They stare at my neck and make my scalp numb. Why not kill all the blood servants? It's easy to say. It is said that there are more than 18,000 blood servants. How long will it take to kill them? Then redemption will be more difficult. 18,000 blood servants, how long will it take to redeem them? The militia captain was the first to discover Rudolph and saw the police badge on Rudolph's chest. "Hello, Sheriff. Please guide our defense." "It's okay, I'm just taking a look." After nightfall, the entire Bayer district was boiling. One by one, the blood servants came out of the house where they were hiding. They first fought and tore in the Bayer district, trying to get a more forward position. When the fighting sound became quieter, black figures with red pupils appeared on the streets of Bayer district. Blood servants lacked means of attack, so they still used guns. Every household in the Carolingian kingdom had a gun, which was a power granted to everyone by the alchemy parliament, and was used to fight against the royal family and nobles at that time. Ordinary people with guns played a good deterrent role in the constitutional movement of that year, and knights and barons once completely lost their land. Later, the constitutional movement was successful, the alchemy parliament was established, and the gun trade became the biggest profit of alchemists. The gun law became one of the important basic laws of the alchemy parliament. Everyone can use guns to protect themselves, and everyone can buy alchemy bullets and guns. The militia captain shouted, "Everyone hold on. Use up the bullets in Bayer district, and they will have no way." There is no bullet supply in Bayer district, unlike Dordo district, where bullets are very sufficient. For a time, the whole street became a battlefield, and the two sides shot at each other across the street. Dordo district not only has sufficient bullets, but also grenades, and the situation is almost one-sided. Without the support of the Alchemy Council, the Bayer district will not be able to hold out for long. The battle lasted for half an hour, and Rudolf saw the blood servants rushing to the nearby area. These blood servants were skinny, with sunken cheeks, and looked like they had not eaten for many days. They were thirsty for blood and food, and they were now like hungry mice. Bullets were like points of light in the night, quickly shooting towards the Bayer district. The street-side buildings in the Bayer district were already like ruins. Rudolf looked at the distance of the Bayer district. After all, these blood servants who dared to attack the Dordo district were a minority, less than 100 people. There were more blood servants in the depths of the Bayer district. I don't know what the Alchemy Council is going to do. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 228. Sporadic fighting continued until the second half of the night, until Rudolf saw the airship. 4 airships flew up from the wealthy Brown district, and the paint of the airships did not look like the airships of the Constitutional Army. Rudolf once thought that the Parliament would use airships to deal with these crazy blood servants, but the speed of the airships was very slow, very slow. 2 airships flew to the Rondo district, and 2 airships flew to the Bayer district. What surprised Rudolf was that these airships did not stop above the streets where the battle was taking place. Are these airships not here to fight? When they got closer, Rudolf could see clearly that the words Thor Trading Company were written on the airship. Some blood servants shot at the airship in the sky, but both the bottom plate and the airbag of the airship had been strengthened by the alchemist, and ordinary bullets could not penetrate it. When the airship entered the Bayer district, some water pipes suddenly extended from the airship. The next moment, everyone was stunned in place, the militiamen on guard were motionless, and the blood servants were motionless. What flowed out of the water pipe was not water, but black and red liquid, showing a black and red color in the moonlight. Blood. It was blood. At the same time, several speakers were extended from the airship. Rudolf turned on the sensing wolf pupil and saw translucent ultrasonic waves vibrating outward from the speakers. This is one of the unique abilities of the Blood Clan, and only blood servants can hear it. All the blood servants had no intention of fighting. They followed the blood falling from the airship, listened to the exciting ultrasonic waves, and rushed towards the airship like crazy. After attracting the attention of all the blood servants, 8 very thick water pipes were extended from the airship. In a short time, the entire Bayer district was boiling. There is blood in the square. There is blood. The blood servants came to attack the Dordo district desperately, just to drink blood. Now there is blood on the square in the Bayer district, and they turned around and rushed to the center of the Bayer district impatiently. Rudolf jumped down from the rooftop and landed on the ground. 2 patrolmen surrounded him, thinking that someone was so excited that he jumped off the building, but it turned out to be the senior police chief. I'll go and take a look, you guys continue to guard the Dordo district here. Rudolf quickly crossed the fortifications and rushed to the center of the Bayer district. After avoiding the sight of the people behind him, Rudolf spread his iron bat wings and flew quickly at low altitude between the buildings. On the ground were stumbling blood servants. These blood servants had been hungry for a week and were close to collapse. They were ragged, their cheeks were sunken, their eyeballs were bulging, and they were like hungry ghosts. Rudolf saw women and children among the blood servants. These weak blood servants were the objects of blood sucking by other blood servants and also one of their food. At this time, he didn't care about hiding and ran to the square. After approaching the square, Rudolf slowed down, put away his bat wings, and buried himself behind the corner of a building. At this time, blood was flowing down the water pipes of the 2 airships. Blood flowed on the ground, and the blood servants crowded around, opened their mouths and bared their teeth to drink the blood. Some blood would fall to the ground and flow to the outside, and the female blood servants and child blood servants would lie on the ground and lick the blood on the ground. These weak blood servants kept squeezing in the middle, with their heads pressed to the ground, and they didn't even let go of the blood in the cracks of the bricks. The blood servants had been hungry for a long time, not to mention the blood in the cracks of the bricks. They would not even let go of the blood in the sewer. When the blood servants had eaten, the valve on the airship suddenly turned off. The blood in the water pipe was originally like a thin waterfall, but now there was nothing, not even a drop. The blood servants raised their hands high below and howled in pain. At this time, a voice came from the airship's horn. Residents of the Bayer district. The Alchemy Council of Fabro City has not given up on you. And it will not give up on you. Ignoring the blood servants' more frantic screams, the voice of the horn came again. Thor Trading Company will implement the Fabro City Redemption Act on behalf of the Alchemy Council of Fabro City. Do you want blood to fill your stomach? Do you want a generous salary? Do you want to stop living like a devil? Come on. Thor Trading Company will give you this opportunity. No matter your age, young or old, no matter your gender, you can come to work at Thor Trading Company. We will give you the most valuable job opportunities, the most precious blood, and the most precious dignity. If you have eaten enough, please treat yourself as a normal person and think about your life before the blood fog night. Only Thor Trading Company can give you a bright future. Thor Trading Company will set up a registration point to provide you with a job as a miner. We will follow the Fabro City Redemption Act to help you survive and live better and better. Thor Trading Company will provide free blood for everyone for 3 consecutive days. On the 3rd night, I hope you can regain your sanity and sign up to become an employee of Thor Trading Company. After that, the airship left the Bayer district. The blood servants in the square crowded together, cursing or thanking the airship of Thor Trading Company. Cursing the airship and leaving, thanking the airship for not starving them to death. The blood servants are still too crazy now, and Thor Trading Company is ready to receive them again in 3 days. Using 3 consecutive days of blood food proves that Thor Trading Company is really capable of arranging so many blood servants. Rudolph came for 3 consecutive days. On the 3rd day, these blood servants were finally no longer crazy. In fact, the difference between low-level apostles and ordinary people is not that big, and they can communicate normally. Especially after knowing that Thor Trading Company is a newly established company of Thor mining, they trust them more. Thor Mining has always been one of the largest companies in Fabro City, and everyone has heard of the name of the Thor family. On the 3rd day, people from Thor Trading Company set up a registration point in the square. Anyone who is willing to join Thor Trading Company can get a bottle of blood. Don't be afraid, you will have a holiday every 2 weeks like ordinary miners, and you can go back to the city at that time. Hearing these warm words and this humane arrangement, the blood servants were no longer panicked. They signed on the registration form one after another, and then got on the carriage hired by Thor Trading Company. The blood servants risked being beaten to death and wanted to rush to other districts to get some blood. Now there is no need to fight desperately. They have another way. Thor Trading Company will implement the Redemption Act. The blood servants held the blood bottle and the carriage pulled them to the suburbs. The power of the Thor Trading Company is very strong. It took only 1 week to organize a convoy that could transport thousands of people. Rudolph wanted to ask Ivy if the Thor family had already prepared these carriages before the blood fog night. The carriages have closed compartments that are completely opaque, so that they can travel during the day. The location of the new mine is more than 100 kilometers away from Fabro City, and it takes some time to reach. It took another 3 days, and most of the blood servants were transported to the new mine of the Thor Trading Company, the Ruhr mining area in the wilderness. When the last carriage was about to leave, Rudolph chose to follow it. It took less than a day for the carriage to reach the Ruhr mining area more than 100 kilometers away. Looking at the blood servants walking into the dark entrance of the mine, Rudolph didn't know what to say. From now on, These blood servants will become important employees of the Thor Trading Company, responsible for mining minerals. If nothing unexpected happens, this will be where they will work in the future, and where they will work forever. The lifespan of the blood servants is as long as 150 years, and this is the place where they work for 150 years. Thor Trading Company does not even need to spend time to manage these blood servants. There are blood clans left by Ravno in the mine. Those blood clans will disguise as managers to make the blood servants obedient and mine obediently. What a good miner! The dark mine is liked by the miners, and they no longer have to be afraid of the sun. Rudolf looked outside the mine and found the gathering place of the werewolves. Thor Trading Company brought a large number of trucks for the werewolves, and these trucks were neatly parked in the open space. If Thor Trading Company did the transportation itself, it would definitely be attacked by werewolves. Now it's good, werewolves are doing the transportation, and there is no need to worry about werewolves. What a perfect design! Rudolf was afraid of being discovered, so after a hasty observation of the surroundings, he quickly left the Ruhr mining area. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 229. In the square of the former Red Church, the ruins and garbage were removed, and 2 trading halls were being built in full swing, one in the south and one in the north. In the Bayer district in the south, there are the office building and trading hall of the Thor Trading Company. In the Rondo district in the north, there are the office building and trading hall of the Rondo Trading Company. The Rondo district and Bayer district are not only dead silent during the day, but also very deserted at night. Most of the blood servants went to the Ruhr mining area. Only a few stayed. There are also people like Sam who accidentally became blood servants and have some background. There is no need to go to the mines of the 2 trading companies. They can live in Fabro City by relying on relatives and friends. Thanks to the Redemption Act, Fabro City allows heretics to exist, especially in Bayer district and Rondo district, and there is no need to hide their identities. After a month, walking in the Bayer district at night, Rudolf can not only meet blood servants, but also werewolves. Those werewolves responsible for transporting iron ore and coal are allowed to enter Fabro City. They look for taverns and stakes like before they became werewolves. To Rudolf's surprise, the werewolves' favorite items were salt and various seasonings. In the wilderness, if you want to eat salt, you can only lick some mineral-containing stones, which is not a good experience. The werewolves bought salt and seasonings in large quantities and transported them to the wilderness in truckloads. Thor Trading Company makes money on both ends, selling mines to other cities on one end and selling things that werewolves need to the wilderness on the other end. In the trade with werewolves, Thor Trading Company has achieved a win-win situation, and they win twice. Since the Blood Clan with fangs and the werewolves with wolf heads can go shopping openly, other heretics with less obvious features can also be relieved. Those who walk in the night of Bayer district may also have evil gods, plague media, and giants. Everyone is carefully observing the people around them, because you don't know what heretics are around you. For heretics, this is a novel experience. Heretics can walk openly in Bayer district and Rondo district. As long as they don't provoke the 2 trading companies, no one will care about them. Of course, there are also some heretics who say that the Alchemy Council of Fabro City is fishing for big fish, preparing to attract heretics to come and take them down in one go. But after understanding it, I realized that the 2 trading companies really needed heretics, so I slowly relaxed my vigilance. The Bayer district is no longer chaotic, and a new order has slowly formed. Everything seems to be getting better, but also seems to be getting worse. After Rudolf returned to the orphanage, Ivan said to him while packing up, "Rudolf, there have been people rummaging through our trash cans at night recently, and I saw a child. How about looking for him and taking him in?" "Okay, I'll go and see tonight." When it was night, Rudolf deployed his spirit pets around to see if there were any children rummaging through the trash cans of the orphanage. There was rarely any leftover food in the orphanage, so how could a child stare at the trash cans of the orphanage? But in the second half of the night, Rudolph saw a very small figure appear next to the trash can. The child looked less than 10 years old and pushed the trash can over with great effort. He searched inside and finally found 3 white things. After putting the 3 white things into his clothes, the child pushed the garbage scattered on the ground into the trash can, and then used all his strength to lift it up. While doing all this, the child was panting with exhaustion, and opened his mouth to breathe. Rudolph saw his fangs. Originally, Rudolph was going to teach this little blood servant a lesson, but when he saw him put the trash can back, he felt that this child was not bad by nature. Rudolph went out and followed him, and then he was stunned. The little blood servant was in a corner of an alley, licking his head down. If Rudolph was not mistaken, it was a sanitary napkin replaced during the menstrual period. At this moment, Rudolph did not feel sick or nauseous, but just felt sad. He raised his head and looked at the night sky. Is this world so cruel? Do those people want to let such a child suffer such humiliation for money? After the little blood servant finished eating, he found another trash can and threw away the things in his hand. Then, he squatted behind the trash can and cried for a long time. Rudolph stood in the distance, listening to his crying. Rudolph walked over until the little blood servant was tired of crying. He used his cane to push the trash can away and saw the blood servant child who had just fallen asleep. The child was awakened by the sound of the trash can moving and looked at Rudolph with fear. Even if the child didn't know that Rudolph was a level 3 wizard, a child about 1 meter tall felt powerless in front of a tall young man. Come with me, if you are found by the people in the Dordo district, you will be beaten to death. The little blood servant asked tremblingly, where are you taking me? At least you can't stay in the Dordo district. The Dordo district is not as safe as the Bayer district. It is more stable now, and at least there is no discrimination against blood servants. The little blood servant got up from the ground obediently and followed Rudolph to the west. After entering the Bayer area, the little blood servant became more and more frightened. I don't want to go home, can you let me stay next to the orphanage? Why should I stay next to the orphanage? I know I can't go to the orphanage, but I know the people in the orphanage are not so bad and won't beat me. Rudolph looked down at the little blood servant and felt that he was very pitiful. If he hadn't been in an accident, he would now be a child being cared for by his parents at home. Even if he is an orphan, he can enter the almshouse, but because he is a blood servant, he can only wander outside alone now. Maybe he would feel envious when he looked at the children in the workhouse. Rudolph said, I will take you to a place that may take you in. The two of them went around in circles. The little blood servant was too small and had very short legs. He had to move very quickly to catch up with Rudolph. I haven't asked your name yet. Siller. What's your name, sir? Rudolph. Cyril had no reaction when he heard Rudolph's name. Maybe he would know what this name meant when he became a senior vampire. The two of them came to the almshouse in the Bayer district, and Rudolph saw that the lights in the almshouse were still on. Under the words Bayer District Special Children's Relief Home, there is a line of words Toll Trading Company, which proves that this is a relief home run by Toll Trading Company. After taking Cyril into the almshouse, Rudolph saw some staff inside. I am the person in charge of the Dordo District almshouse. I found a young blood servant at my place. Let's see if you can accept him here. Rudolph is also trying his luck. If he accepts it, it is best. If not, Rudolph will go elsewhere. The director of the almshouse was a middle-aged woman. She said, collect it. Miss Ivy from Thor Trading Company is a great philanthropist. She knows that many children in Bayer District have unfortunately become blood servants, so Miss Ivy transformed the original Bayer District almshouse into Bayer District Special Children Almshouse. While listening to the dean's words, Rudolph looked at the fangs in her mouth. This dean is also a blood servant, maybe even a level 1 or 2 vampire. The dean continued to ramble. Toll trading is a truly admirable company. They assumed most of the responsibility for the Redemption Act, providing jobs, food, and income for those unfortunate enough to become blood servants, and establishing almshouses for special children. I have never seen such a kind-hearted company. Rudolph also nodded, yes, such a kind-hearted company is really rare. Fortunately, there is a company like this in Fabreau City. Behind the dean, some blood servant children came out and looked at the two people who visited the almshouse at night. Cyril hid behind Rudolph. He was afraid of the blood servant children who looked directly at him. After becoming a blood servant, the spirit will be different from that of ordinary children. These children in the workhouse are a little neurotic. I'll say a few words to Cyril, and I'll leave this child to you. If you please, sir. Rudolph brought Cyril to the door and said to Cyril, "Stay here, at least it can give you blood and prevent you from being beaten to death by others." "But I don't like it here." Rudolph shook his head, "I have no other good solution. This is the best result for you." Rudolph thought of Sam, who was lying in the copper coffin, and he said, "Maybe I will let someone pick you up after a while. Until then, stay here, and don't run around." Cyril stood at the door of the Special Children's Relief Home, watching Rudolph go away helplessly, not knowing how long he was talking about. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 230. In the third week of the Virgo month of September, Rudolph came to the outskirts of the Black Gold Institute as usual and was responsible for the security of the Black Gold Institute. Recently, there has been an influx of people in Fabreau City, including many extremely dangerous people. Rudolph is very calm and has nothing to sell. He just stayed outside the Black Gold Institute and used the spiritual pet crystal to monitor the situation outside. Since the promulgation of the Fabreau City Redemption Act, the Black Gold Exchange has fixed its trading venue. The Black Gold Exchange bought a high-end hotel and transformed it into a new Black Gold Exchange. With the blood servants and werewolves filling the streets, there was no need for the Black Gold Institute to cover up, and it was simply more open and above board. The hotel has restaurants, conference halls, and dozens of guest rooms. The guest rooms are not open to the public and are only allowed to be used by customers of the Black Gold Institute. Fabreau City has now become a paradise for heretics, and many heretics from nearby cities have come to Fabreau City to trade. The high-end special free restaurant, luxurious carpets, silver-plated wall lamps, crystal chandeliers connected like branches, and spacious trading hall make the Fabreau City Black Gold Institute much more advanced. Windsor, the guide, does not need to sit on a bench by the street. There is a special office in the side hall at the entrance of the hotel. She sits on the sofa in the office and drinks hot tea every day. This week's transaction ended quickly. Rudolph saw the transaction host, level 3 wizard Tabo, who always wore a tuxedo, come out of the side door of the hotel and walk towards Rudolph. Tabo and Rudolph were already very familiar with each other, so Tabo went straight to the point. "Rudolph, you have been a little more careful lately. Baiho has just announced a reward for you, 5,000 gold shields." Tabo didn't say who Queen Bai was, but both he and Rudolph knew that Queen Bai was from Thor Trading Company. Rudolph didn't take it seriously either. "Don't you see that the reward is slowly rising? The Rievno family is petty and only offered me a reward of 3,000 gold shields. They have no vision, but some people have vision. 5,000 gold shields. I am very satisfied with this increase." That's why Tabor loved talking to Rudolph, who was always so optimistic. "Due to the responsibilities of the Black Gold Institute, we cannot suspend this reward. But I still want to wish you good luck. If you can survive this time, maybe the reward will be increased next time, Tabo emphasized. Rudolph, don't let others know that you found out who is offering a reward to you from the Black Gold Institute. In principle, we must keep client information absolutely confidential. Clear. Tabor returned to the hotel, while Rudolph was alone in the dark thinking about where he offended Thor Trading Company. Thor Trading Company's money didn't come from strong winds, so why should it be given to him like this? Unfortunately, the person they wanted to put a reward on had some respect in the underworld, and as soon as they posted the reward anonymously, Rudolph found out. Rudolph feels a little tricky. Thor Trading Company has the ability to find Rudolph. This has nothing to do with Rudolph pretending or not, because the almshouse is managed by Ivy of the Thor family. Rudolph quickly left the Black Gold Institute and rushed back to the Dordo District almshouse. When he entered the almshouse, he found that everything was normal in the almshouse, and Rudolph breathed a sigh of relief. Also, the bounty just released cannot have problems so quickly, but I don't know who will come to accept the bounty. Ivan, be careful lately. Someone may do something bad to us. Be especially careful with the Thor family and Ivy. Ivan agreed without asking any questions. The next day, Rudolph went to the city police station. Now the city police department, like the judiciary department, is only responsible for the security of the wealthy Brown District, Central District, and Dordo District, but there are a lot less things to do. After sitting in Claude's office, Rudolph said, "Director, someone is placing a reward on my head in the Black Gold Institute." "Oh? Is there a reward for me? How much am I worth?" Rudolph thought for a while and said, "No, you have to reflect on whether you are too kind to others. No one wants to get rid of you. This fully proves that you are very incompetent as the police chief." "Shit, they actually look down on me." "Director Claude, I'm serious. Someone is offering a reward to me." "Then how do you want me to help you?" "Help you find out who is offering the reward to you. Or send someone to protect you." "No need. I was offered a reward of 5,000 gold shields by Thor Trading Company. I want to know why." When Claude heard that it was Thor Trading Company, he was a little serious for a moment. "If it is Thor Trading Company, then I know the reason. It's just..." "Just what?" "I just didn't expect them to really hold a grudge." Claude put out the cigarette butt in the ashtray. "Did you know?" "According to Thor, no. According to Revno's plan, he will use the blood mist to turn people in the 4 districts into blood servants. Creating blood servants in the central area is just to increase chaos, leaving the Alchemy Council with no extra power to deal with the vampires and reducing the pressure on the vampires. The blood servants in Rondo District are used by Rondo Trading Company, which is also used by the Trading Company of the Nobles. According to the plan, the blood servants in Bayer District and Dordo District will be used by Thor Trading Company. Thor Trading Company has many shareholders, and many members of the county council and the speaker of the county council hold shares in it. It was all perfect, but, Rudolph, you ruined it at the last moment. The Dordo District was saved by you, which resulted in Thor Trading Company only having blood servants available in the Bayer District. Originally, Thor Trading Company's plan was very big, and there would be very huge mineral output, but your presence has caused them to lose half of their old labor force. With half of the labor force missing, the profit will be affected, and the shareholders of Thor Trading Company are certainly not satisfied. They can't express their dissatisfaction openly. They can't blame you for saving so many people at this time, but the small actions behind the scenes will not stop." Rudolph couldn't help shaking his head. "It's really hard to be a good person." Claude continued. "Of course, this is also because Avery was stimulated. At a dance party in Fabreau City some time ago, Viscount Savin mocked Avery of the Thor family. Avery is the eldest son of the Thor family, Ivy's brother, and the general manager of Thor Trading Company. Rondo Trading Company originally had less than half of the blood servants of Thor Trading Company, and even fewer minerals. Viscount Savin was angry. Now Rondo Trading Company and Thor Trading Company are about the same size, which made Viscount Savin vent his anger. But Avery is not so good. Maybe he is so angry that he just issued a reward for you. 5,000 gold shields are a lot, but for Avery, it's nothing. You'd better be careful, there are always people who risk their lives for money. 5,000 gold shields are even enough to buy a level 4 magic weapon. Finally, Claude said. Who in the whole city of Fabreau doesn't know that you are my man? How dare they offer a reward for you? And they left me behind and didn't offer a reward for me? We must teach them a lesson. Let them know who is the master of Fabreau City. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 231. After waiting for 3 or 4 days, Rudolph didn't wait for anyone to take action against him. This feeling of waiting is irritating. He needs to be careful all the time. He doesn't know when someone will rush out from the shadows and attack him, which makes Rudolph very tired. Colonel Guyton is sitting in the camp of the 56th Regiment of the Constitutional Army, as well as Deputy Speaker Abel. They are very concerned about the emergence of the 4th level apostle in Fabreau City. Rudolph is not worried about level 4 apostles coming to hunt him. Once a level 4 apostle or higher appears, the Alchemy Council will be more nervous than him. Deputy Speaker Abel will soon know where these dangerous people are and will also notify Rudolph through Claude. Waiting for a long time was not the answer. Rudolph was a proactive person. After preparing for a long time, he decided to do something. Rudolph's advantage lies in his poor information. Thor Trading Company thought they were hiding it well, but in fact Rudolph knew everything. He and Claude have even investigated who is the person in charge of the bounty arranged by Thor Trading Company, what hobbies he has, and what habits he has. Rudolph and Claude know everything. One evening a few days later, Rudolph walked to the office of Thor Trading Company. The office building had not yet been completed, and the foundation had just been laid. Thor Trading Company rented many buildings around the original church square to serve as temporary office space. He walked to a house next to the square, where a sign hung, Toll Trading Company General Management Department. The almshouse is now a subordinate agency of the General Management Department. Rudolph entered the General Management Department and found the manager in charge. I'm here to collect this month's allocation for the Dordo District almshouse. After finishing speaking, Rudolph sat calmly on the sofa in the office and looked at the manager behind the desk. Thor Trading Company will not pay high wages to its employees or improve their working conditions, but it will spend money on charity, as many companies do. Rudolph was very active every time he came to Thor Trading Company to collect money, and he didn't want the money to be in vain. The manager in charge looked at Rudolph on the sofa, his expression unnatural, his pupils shrunken, and said, "Okay, please wait for a while. Recently, the company is building office buildings, trading floors, and transit warehouses, and the money is flowing like water. I will go and see it. Let's see if there is any balance left this month." "As you please." The manager felt regretful after leaving the office. As the manager of the General Management Department, he should not be so polite. When facing someone who comes to ask for money, he should be strong and not give him a good look. However, he didn't dare. As the manager in charge of important departments of Thor Trading Company, he knows all the intelligence about Bayer District. This young man, who is less than 20 years old, is a notorious wizard. The manager quickly came to the security department. After saying a few words in the ear of the security manager Sly, he quickly left and returned to the General Management Department. When Rudolph met the manager of the General Management Department again, he saw an envelope and a form in the manager's hand. After filling out the form, Rudolph said nothing and left the General Management Department with the money in the envelope. The manager regretted again. Why didn't he ask about the operating conditions of the Dordo District almshouse just now? This person's apparent identity is just one of the directors of a relief home, so there's nothing wrong with him asking, right? The tribunal will not enter Rondo District and Bayer District. This is a private request of the two trading companies. The two trading companies not only want to do business in wilderness minerals and werewolves, but also want to do other heretical business. In order to ensure the safety of the company has established its own security department. Thor Trading Company intends to build the security department into the most powerful force in Bayer District to protect its business in all aspects. Security manager Sly came to the window, stood behind the window, and watched the wizard Rudolph leave the square. This reward for the wizard Rudolph is also a recruitment test for the security department. Anyone who can kill the wizard Rudolph will directly join the security department. The security department doesn't mind recruiting some heretics, as long as they are obedient, and as long as they have enough strength. Behind Sly, several employees were busy delivering information from the wizard Rudolph. After leaving Thor Trading Company, Rudolph strolled slowly around the Bayer area. After nightfall, he even walked into a restaurant and prepared to have dinner here. The owner and waiters of the restaurant are both blood servants. The business of the restaurant is not good. Rudolph chatted a lot with a beautiful waitress. In other words, your restaurant basically suffered no losses during the blood fog night, right? Yes, sir. On the night of the blood fog, our entire restaurant turned into blood servants and attacked each other. Everyone woke up with bruises. However, the restaurant happened to buy a live cow that day. During the most difficult period, inside, I completely blocked the doors and windows of the restaurant and relied on the live cow to hold on until there was no more chaos outside. Then we should really thank that cow. Is it okay for a blood servant to drink animal blood? The waitress was still a little uncomfortable talking about these topics, but Rudolph was one of the few customers who was willing to talk to them. She continued. You can be full by drinking animal blood, but you will feel hungry again soon. Thor Trading Company sends blood to the mining area every month. I heard that the blood is animal blood mixed with a little human blood, pure human blood. It's just too expensive. The demand for blood in the Ruhr mining area is very high. If it is not pure human blood, the blood supply pressure will be much smaller. Duck blood has the best taste, and pig blood is the worst. But I still prefer cow blood mixed with human blood, probably because we relied on cow blood for the first few days. When Rudolph heard duck blood tastes the best, he was in a trance for a moment, as if he was listening to some kind of vermicelli soup. The maid continued, we should really thank Thor Trading Company. They brought blood when the Bayer area was in the most difficult time, and also gave most people a job. I wrote to my friends in the mine, and they would reply. They all said that they really wanted to come back to take turns. But the mine has just been built, and there is some chaos. It will take some time before they can take turns. The correspondence proves that Thor Trading Company does not mind others knowing the situation in the Ruhr mining area. The ability to communicate and promise to take turns means that the situation is better than Rudolph thought. Thor Trading Company treats those blood slave miners well. Sir, I see you didn't order Bloody Mary, aren't you a blood slave? What is Bloody Mary? A red cocktail in the past, now it means blood. Someone is selling blood on the black market, and our boss also bought a lot of it. Rudolph shook his head, I'm not a blood slave, I don't need Bloody Mary. After dinner, Rudolph left the deserted restaurant. The Bayer district has undergone tremendous changes, and everyone is slowly adapting to this change. I don't know when this restaurant will get better. When Rudolph went out, he saw two people about to enter the restaurant. Humans are such tenacious creatures. Perhaps these blood servants have also accepted their new identities and started a new life. When it was midnight, Rudolph walked into an empty alley. There was an indescribable smell in the air, which made Rudolph a little alert. Is it coming?